The bus stop was empty. I sniffled, trying hard not to freeze. There was nothing in my pockets. A few cars rushed past, and the drivers didn't pay any attention to me. I checked my phone. The battery was completely dead. The last time I checked, it was 11:30 p.m., so it must be around midnight now, but there's still no bus. I sighed. I should have been at home, not out in the cold. But what can you do? Work is work, especially when you're broke. I stayed late at the workshop, hoping to earn a few extra bucks with overtime, but all I got was frozen legs. And now here I am, standing like an idiot, wondering how to get home. It's too far to walk. You can't catch a taxi without an app, and I don't have the money for one anyway. I looked around. No one. Just emptiness and silence, as if the street had died. A lonely street lamp cast a dim light on the small patch where I continued to shuffle around pointlessly. It felt like that light was the only thing keeping me warm, keeping me from breaking. One step away, and I'd be gone. Strange thoughts, I mused. My brain must be completely frozen. Another 20 minutes passed. I was about to resign myself to the long walk, but then, out of the darkness, a couple of saving lights appeared. A bus. An old Pazik rattled up to the stop. Its exhaust coughed, and the whole body shuddered like an old man woken up too early. The front door opened with a screech. The number 77 was on the sign. Not my route, but the final stop was Shirakaya, which meant it was going my way. I might have hesitated, but when there's a chance to get home after you've lost all hope, you take it. I got on, tossed some change to the driver, who nodded but didn't say anything. He was strange. He wore a cap and glasses, and I couldn't make out his face. He was unusually still. Usually drivers are either cursing or listening to the radio, but this one, he just sat there. The windows were fogged up. The paint on the handrails was peeling. It was almost empty inside. Only an old man in a worn-out coat was dozing in the very back. All the better. No one to bother me. I plopped down on a seat where the heater was and smiled blissfully. In just half an hour, I'd be home. The door slammed shut abruptly. The bus shuddered and started moving. I was tired and leaned against the window trying to see the street, but it was too smudged. The only thing I could make out were the blurry silhouettes of trees and houses as we swayed and rattled over every bump. It was stuffy inside, and it smelled of something musty, like a wet cloth that had been hanging for too long without drying. Slush seeped in from the cracks under my feet, sticking to the soles of my shoes. I glanced at the dirty window again, but only darkness slid by behind it. The city had vanished, and it felt like we were in the middle of a wasteland. I closed my eyes, lulled by the monotonous hum of the engine and the swaying of the bus. A dull drone sounded in my ears as my eyelids grew heavy, my body relaxed, and I fell into the darkness. I woke up with a jolt. The bus had shaken violently again, as if with a fever. I sat up and automatically glanced at the driver's digital clock. 0:45. I frowned. It should have taken about 30 minutes to get to the final stop. My stop was right before it. We should have already arrived. My gaze swept over the cabin. There were more people on the bus now. Up front, near the exit, sat a couple. A girl in a thin down jacket and a guy with long bangs. They were huddled together, whispering about something. The old man in the worn-out coat was still dozing in the corner. His face was half hidden by his collar. An unpleasant feeling started to build. I distinctly remembered getting on the bus at 12:05. Why were we still on the road? I stood up, grabbing a handrail where someone had once carved a heart. The handrail was cold, as if it had never been touched by a warm hand. I moved toward the driver. The Pazik was so jerky I almost lost my balance a couple of times. "Excuse me, why is it taking so long?" I asked, approaching the cabin. "We'll get there soon," the driver mumbled, without moving. He still sat there, motionless, both hands on the wheel. In the dull reflection of the glass, I saw his face. His glasses gleamed in the dim light, his cap hid his forehead, and his features were blurred, as if rubbed away on an old photograph. Taking a detour, he muttered, barely parting his lips. His voice was dry, as if he hadn't spoken for days. Another half hour? I winced. Are you kidding me? What kind of detour? Why so long? The driver didn't answer. I stood there for a bit longer, waiting for some kind of reaction, but there was none. I was simply being ignored. I went back to my seat, angrily sniffing, but then I felt ashamed of my reaction. Maybe the man was having a hard day. After all, it's not an easy job, and this was probably his last run. Maybe he was just tired. But the tension didn't go away. I glanced over at the couple. They weren't moving, just sitting pressed against each other, staring at the foggy window. I couldn't make out anything through the glass, but I realized we were driving through a forest. This was a country road, and only one route went down it. There was a summer cottage community nearby, but at this hour, of course, the stops we passed were empty. The headlights carved out gnarled silhouettes of trees from the darkness. I cursed myself. Why on earth did I get on this bus? I probably would have died if I had walked. Suddenly, the bus braked sharply, and I was thrown forward. I managed to grab a handrail, but one of the passengers, probably the girl, screamed. The engine sputtered and coughed, but the bus didn't move. The driver pressed the gas pedal several times. Nothing. It was as if something was holding the bus, not letting it go. "What the hell?" he said, and grabbed a flashlight from the dashboard. I watched as he pulled up his collar, opened the door, and got out. Stuck? Just perfect. That's all we needed. A heavy, oppressive, and eerie silence fell over the cabin. I looked at the couple. The girl was nervously biting her thumbnail, while the guy stared out the window, as if nothing in the world could bother him. Outside, I heard the sound of footsteps on the frozen ground. The beam of the flashlight flickered along the shoulder of the road. I swallowed and muttered, trying to ease my own tension. Just hope it's nothing serious. And then it happened. A quiet, but distinct sound. A scrape. Like someone slowly, lazily, dragged a claw across the side of the bus. I froze. The sound repeated, closer this time. Slow, drawn out, as if something was scratching metal. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I looked around. The passengers were sitting still. The driver was outside. So who was it? The heavy, oppressive silence returned, and suddenly I heard a sharp bang on the windshield. The driver's face appeared there. His skin was pale, his mouth ajar, his eyes wild. His glasses had slipped down his nose, and his cap was askew. He breathed out a puff of steam and shouted, "Don't get out!" His voice was filled with terror, a true animalistic terror. Before anyone could react, something grabbed him. The driver's head jerked back, his chest arched, his arms flew into the air, and his fingers clenched. He screamed again, a high-pitched, desperate shriek, but it was cut short a second later, as if someone had flipped a switch. The driver dissolved into the darkness. I couldn't believe my eyes. My heart clenched inside me. Panic broke out among our small group. The girl screamed. The guy grabbed her hands, trying to calm her. From behind, the old man coughed and groaned. His voice was hoarse, like rusty iron. "Lord, forgive me. Lord, forgive me," he mumbled, clutching a handrail. Something heavy hit the side of the bus. The tin can on wheels, dangerously tilted. Another hit, this time from the other side. The bus vibrated, and the metal groaned pitifully. Then, we were thrown forward, as if a gigantic invisible hand had grabbed the roof of the bus and yanked it sharply. I flew forward, hitting my shoulder on a seat, then something else. The girl continued to shriek hysterically. Her boyfriend groaned in pain. The bus lurched again, harder, more violently. The windows rattled. Someone in the back fell to the floor. I turned and saw the old man sliding down the aisle, his head bobbing like a puppet's. Another hit. The bus tilted. My heart was pounding in my throat. "Hold on!" someone yelled. And then the bus flipped over. It all happened in an instant, but it felt like time slowed down. The floor became the ceiling. People flew like dolls, crashing into seats and each other and the handrails. My head hit something, and white flashes exploded in front of my eyes. Screams, the roar of metal, the hiss of air, pain in my back, my shoulders, my arms, everywhere. I had to do something, come up with something. But what could you do when you were being mercilessly tossed around the cabin? The light, I suddenly remembered. The driver had gone out with the flashlight. Maybe someone, or something, outside was reacting to the light. I groaned and tried to get up. My body ached as if I'd just been put through a giant cement mixer. I looked at the windows. They were broken, covered in frost, but through them I could still only see darkness and the silhouettes of trees. "Get to the cab. Just get to the cab and turn off the lights," a voice pounded in my head. The headlights were still on, cutting through the night. Whatever was outside was clearly reacting to the light. I struggled to my feet and, swaying, dragged myself forward. Each breath was a struggle. I must have hit my ribs pretty hard. Just don't break anything. It didn't matter. None of it mattered. I pushed away the useless thoughts, trying to focus on the main thing. Suddenly, someone grabbed my leg. I flinched and turned around. It was the old man. His face was pale, his eyes cloudy. His lips were moving, but I couldn't hear the words. I just shook my head and broke free from his weak grip. No time. I had to turn off the light. Another lurch, and I was in the cab. It was also upside down. In this inverted world, everything seemed unreal. The steering wheel stuck up. The levers looked alien, like a strange language. I grabbed a handrail, trying not to slide down. Every movement was a stab of pain. A burning sensation was in my chest, as if a shard of glass was stuck inside. I was out of breath, but I still reached out toward the ignition. The key was in place. I almost laughed with relief. But at that moment, the bus jerked, or something jerked it. I was thrown to the side and hit my head hard on the dashboard. The world flashed white, then went dark. A searing pain spread across my skull. I almost passed out. My body went limp, but my fingers still clung to the wheel. No, a little more. I gathered all my strength, stretched out, almost fell, but grabbed the dashboard at the last moment. I reached for the key and turned it. The bus shuddered, as if resisting, but a moment later, the engine sputtered. The headlights flickered, and the light died. Darkness slammed its jaws shut and swallowed us all. A silence fell over the bus. It felt unnatural. My ears were still ringing from the recent horror, but now a new sound was added to that ringing. The sound of nothing, the sound of our shared predicament, trapped here, in the middle of a winter forest, in a flipped-over bus without a driver, without any idea what to do next. "Lord, forgive me. Lord, forgive me," the old man mumbled somewhere to the side. A sob was heard, then another. The girl. She was crying, trying to hold it together, but each new breath was harder than the last. What the hell was that?" The guy's voice was strained. He tried to speak calmly, but something in his voice bothered me. Panic. I straightened with difficulty, pressing my palm to my forehead. My head was throbbing. I exhaled loudly, as if collecting my thoughts. "Dude, you saw that too, right?" I didn't know how to phrase it. How to say out loud that the driver flew out of the darkness, that he screamed, "Don't get out," and then was dragged back. How to say it without going insane. "Yeah," was all I could manage to say. Silence again, thick, oppressive. "We need to," the guy swallowed. "Do something." The girl sobbed louder, but then got a hold of herself. "Phone," she croaked. "Does anyone have a phone?" I instinctively put my hand in my pocket. The phone was there, intact. I took it out. I pressed the button. Black screen. "Damn it," I hissed. Mine died back at the stop. The guy irritably shook a useless piece of plastic. "Mine too." The girl frantically tried to turn on hers, but it showed no signs of life. Tension hung in the air. "Okay," I said slowly, trying not to let panic consume us. "We don't understand what's happening yet, but one thing is clear. Getting out is a bad idea." "He's right, son," the old man said with a nod. "Don't do it. Maybe we can just wait for someone. A different car in the morning." The girl fell silent, clutching the guy's shoulder. "We'll freeze to death," he answered softly. "We won't last until morning." I gritted my teeth. The frosty air was already filling the cabin with icy fingers, creeping under our clothes and biting our skin. Damn January. We definitely won't last until morning, so we have to figure out what it was, I said. "A bear?" The girl's eyes were red from crying. "A bear wouldn't flip a bus," the guy growled. "What if it could?" She clung to his shoulder tighter. We fell silent. "It could have been a person," I said, unsure. "A person?" the guy repeated. "Are you serious? The driver was dragged away. Not a beast, not a bear. Someone or something." The girl sobbed again. Goosebumps ran down my spine. "Maybe we should get out anyway?" The guy looked at me. "And then what?" I looked out the window. There was only darkness, inky, deaf, endless. Just go out there and hope for the best? He didn't get to answer. Outside, a horrible, disgusting sound erupted. A low, drawn-out rumble. A dull, vibrating sound, as if something was growling in the earth itself. It rolled in heavy waves. It was like a growl, but too deep, too inhuman. "Quiet," I hissed. What an idiot I am. I should have stayed quiet, kept still, not had a chat. If it can see, it can surely hear. I sharply raised my hand and gestured to everyone. Not a sound. The girl sucked in a breath, bit her lip, and her shoulders started to shake. "Please," I silently begged, but it was too late. She sobbed once, then a second time, louder. The guy quickly put his arm around her and clamped a hand over her mouth. "Quiet, quiet," he whispered, but she couldn't hear him anymore. She started shaking her head, twisting and writhing, and a muffled scream broke through his fingers. And then another one, louder. Finally, she screamed with all her might. The scream tore through the fragile silence. A moment later, there was a crash. The window behind the girl exploded with a deafening crash, showering us with shards of glass. The wind rushed into the bus, and with it, something else. She was yanked backward, sharply, with such force that her head snapped back, her hair flew up, and her fingers desperately clung to the handrail. She shrieked. Her boyfriend lunged forward, grabbed her arm. "Hold on." She struggled, her nails scraping his jacket. Her feet slipped. Something kept pulling her into the darkness. "Pull her," I yelled, but my voice sounded muffled, as if the air had become thick. The guy cursed, pulled harder, but he was also yanked forward. He groaned in pain. His fingers turned white. The same sound came again, the one that made our hair stand on end. This time, it was louder, closer, a deep rumbling growl that turned into the howl of something that should not exist. It was too low, too voluminous, as if it was coming from everywhere at once, getting under our skin. I saw the guy's eyes widen. He managed to turn to me, his mouth in a silent scream, and then they were gone. The guy and the girl were ripped from the bus. The darkness swallowed them in an instant, as if they had never been there. Only a scrap of her scarf slowly slid from the seat and fell to the floor. "This is a nightmare. I have to wake up." I trembled in horror. I couldn't move. My body was numb. With difficulty, I turned my head and looked at the old man who was still behind me. The old man was breathing heavily and quickly, as if he couldn't get enough air. His face was pale, his lips were moving soundlessly, and in his eyes was that very same listless, hollow despair that I feared seeing most of all. He was praying. "Listen, we have to do something." I crawled over to him, grabbed him by the shoulder and shook him. "Do you hear me? We have to." He shook his head. His gaze was strangely calm. "It's too late, son. Too late. If we stay quiet, maybe it will leave. Maybe we have a chance." "No." He shook his head wearily again. "It's already decided." He closed his eyes and whispered, "Lord, forgive your servant." I clenched my teeth. "Be quiet. Be quiet, please." But he no longer heard me. His lips moved faster and faster, more and more confidently. He began to repeat the prayer over and over, as if reciting a familiar spell. I grabbed his shoulder, shook him, tried to shut him up, but he continued. His voice rose, overpowering the wind howling through the broken window. It became stronger. I didn't immediately understand what happened. From the top, from the very roof of the bus, or now the floor, something tore its way in with the sound of ripping metal, with a grinding that made my teeth ache. The bus shuddered. A deafening roar filled my ears, and then a piece of the body, a huge, torn, twisted piece, was ripped upward. I screamed, pressing myself against the seat, covering my head with my hands. But the old man didn't move. He just tilted his face upward toward the gaping maw above. Music. It. An enormous clawed finger, black and huge like the paw of a giant beast. It hung there for a moment as if choosing, and then descended toward us. I recoiled. The old man didn't even scream. The finger picked him up like a toy in a cursed claw machine, sinking a claw into his back and lifting him into the air. The old man was still whispering his prayer, even when his feet left the floor, even when his side was pierced and ripped open. He continued to mumble the prayer, even when he disappeared into the inky, living darkness. Everything seemed empty. My head was ringing, my thoughts sinking into a sticky, viscous blackness. I just sat there, staring blankly at the hole in the roof, at the emptiness where he had just been. I couldn't move, as if some invisible weight was pressing down on my chest, pinning me to the floor. The driver, the girl, the guy, the old man, they're all gone. I'm left alone. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and let it out. One more time. Another. To hell with it. If I'm going to die, I'd rather do it in the snow, in the cold, than here in this flipped-over iron grave, waiting for it to get to me too. I started to get up and immediately hissed in pain. My back felt as if it had been slashed. It didn't matter. I had to distract that thing and get out of here as fast as possible. I bit my lip and slowly crawled toward the driver's cab. Again, I awkwardly pulled myself up, reached for the key, and turned the ignition. Not on the first try, but the engine roared to life. The headlights came on. I knew I had only a few seconds before the light and sound attracted attention. Ignoring the pain, I lunged toward the broken window. The wind hit my face like an icy blade when I stuck my head out. Snow settled on the sharp glass shards. Outside, darkness stretched out. with only the unclear silhouettes of trees in the distance. Ghostly, unsettling. Come on, move. I put my hand outside, feeling for the edge of the frame. The glass cut into my palm, but I didn't pay attention. I pulled myself up. Pain flared in my side, echoed in the back of my head, in every damn inch of my body. But I gritted my teeth. A knee caught on the edge, and I was immediately hit with new pain. Something sharp tore my skin. I hissed, but suppressed a scream, stifled the urge to fall back. I finally managed to twist out and slide down, spilling out into the snow. I fell to my hands, and my stomach immediately twisted into a knot. I saw them around the bus. Torn hands, legs, pieces of clothing scattered on the snow, like gruesome rags. Blood spread in crimson patches, turning the pristine snow into a gory mess. The guy, or what was left of him, his hand was still clutching something invisible, as if he had been trying to hold on. The girl's head lay nearby, her mouth open in a silent scream, her hair matted into sticky, clotted strands. The old man. All that was left of him was a bare foot sticking out of a snowdrift. I felt the nausea returning, but forced myself to swallow. Not now. If I stayed, my guts would be lying next to theirs. I knew, I felt, that it was still somewhere here, close by. I got up with difficulty, immediately doubling over and grabbing my knee. Something hot soaked my clothes. The wound was deep. Damn it. But I had to move. I scrambled toward the trees. First, at a walk, then faster, while my legs still obeyed, while my breathing hadn't become ragged and black circles hadn't started to swim in front of my eyes. The snow grabbed at my legs, pulling, as if I was drowning in it. Another step, another. My head was spinning. I stumbled and fell to my knees, but got back up again. But it was clear I wouldn't get far. After about 10 meters, I collapsed into a snowdrift. My strength had left me. The rumble broke through the night again, a heavy, low, vibrating, as if the earth itself groaned in pain. It ran down my spine like an icy current, rushed through my chest, filled my lungs. I tried to get up, but I had no strength left, just enough to lift my head and turn back. The bus jerked, stopped, and then soared into the air. 50 meters, maybe more. It was spinning, twisting, and being tossed around like an empty tin can in the hands of a merciless child, trying to shake out whatever was stuck inside. It hit something invisible in the air, the metal screeching, then again. And I saw them, the hands, enormous, black clawed. They were clutching the bus. Their fingers were digging in, twisting the metal dot. And then I saw the rest of it. A huge, blindingly black something, the size of a house, with something like a head but not human, and with eyes. No, not eyes. Bottomless, empty voids in which there was neither light nor life. The world tilted. The last thing I heard was the grinding of metal and the roar of the enormous creature. The bus disappeared into its claws. A single question pounded in my head. What is that? What the hell is that? But there was no answer. The thing squeezed the bus, and the world around me fell apart. I looked at those terrifying clawed hands, unable to tear my gaze away.